Good morning, everybody. Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talks. Are you serious? I'll be joined by my co-host, the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez, in a little bit. He has not arrived in the studio yet, but we'll certainly bring him in as soon as he gets here. Our plan today is to talk a little bit about the Yankees and the Mets in the second half of the season, and potentially a few other teams too. We'll look at the Yankees and Mets needs as they head towards, ultimately, hopefully, a playoff situation for both teams, and what they need to do to be successful there, and maybe who some of those contenders and pretenders might be. We'll talk about all of that coming up. I want to welcome everybody who's watching on Facebook, watching live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, any place you're catching us today. Remember, too, you'll catch us repeated on Roku at 10 a.m. this morning. And you can also catch us on all the streaming, podcast services out there, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anything pretty much that you can think of. So catch us there. We'll play a little spot for the Dream Yard experience about halfway through the show. Make sure Dream Ride experience coming up August 26th in Farmingdale, Connecticut. Northeast Streaming Sports will have a presence there, and we'll talk about it at the bottom of the hour. The Philly Sports Guy will be there doing some TikTok stuff and other things as well. So check that out. Catch out our college football huddle, which airs live on Wednesday nights, certainly repeats pretty much every day on Roku, repeats every day except for Saturday and Sunday at 11:30 a.m. And let's see, I guess that's it for right now. And again, thank you to all for joining in, all of you live who are going to be with us today as we talk Mets, Yankees, second half, trade potentials, outlook, playoff, what they need to be successful in the playoffs, and we'll see where else that takes us as far as conversation in Major League Baseball. And they did return yesterday. I thought everybody was back today. It's very odd that there were some games last night that caught me by surprise. Good morning, Alan. Good to have you with us. And let's bring in, without further ado, the Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. Good morning, Carlos.
Morning, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I'd like to see it cool off just a little bit, as I'm sure you would. Yes, Alan, we'll be talking much about the Yankees Astros problem, which continued as the second half kicked off yesterday. The Yankees, and just look at this, is going to be the Yankees albatross until they kick it. And what happens in this sets a tone, and we'll start here, I guess, Carlos, real quick. This sets a tone that is not wonderful, but as Aaron Boone said last night, the Yankees won the season series from the Astros last year and got beat in the playoffs. So at the end of the day, all that matters is October. I don't care about 116 wins, could care less. I don't even care about 109 wins. I don't care about anything except, as I said to you before, 12 wins in October. That's all I care about. In November, I guess. So that carry into November.
It does set kind of a tone in the sense where the management's like, we need to do something quick to make sure that we can beat a team like the Astros. As far as the Yankees are concerned, they know that they're lacking in depth, and I'm sure they're working on in the back, end of things and trying to figure things out as far as bullpen help and making sure that they don't get into a game like this with the Astros the next time they face them, right? Because the Astros and the bullpen and the pitching, that's the team to beat right now. So that looks like the team that maybe come down to getting, into the final, rounds of the playoffs
Yeah, the Yankees need to continue, and let me change my banner real quick. The Yankees need to continue, obviously, and this is all a lot of it's luck. They had a healthy starting pitching staff pretty much through the whole first half until Severino got hurt near the end.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to continue. Cole needs to pitch like an ace. The magic can't wear off of Nasty Nestor, and Severino needs to get healthy. And somebody's got to step up. We saw Herman get his first start in a really tough spot yesterday. I thought that's a tough spot to put him for his first start.
But again, the depth that they don't have, that they lack, and to force Herman to be in there, and then you're looking at Nestor. He hasn't pitched a full season ever. This is going to be his first season, so you need somebody. You need an extra body or two, like I've been saying, and you need to get them ASAP before you go into the deep hot days of summer, right? Because these guys, when the pitching breaks down the most, and everybody knows it's the hottest days that they have to spend out there on, in some of these afternoon games, and then some of the late night games are humid, especially in when you're playing in the southeast and in the southwest. So,
you talked about Nestor. I think his high. I could be wrong. I think his high in innings pitched is like 160 for a season. That includes minor leagues and stuff.
Right.
So as he approaches that number, it's going to be important whether the Yankees, and I hate this word or this term, load management is going to become important here. As much as I hate that word, you got to be careful because you do not know. It's impossible. He may respond fine. Some guys just can blow past. Guys, in the old days, they'd blow past 350 innings, but we're not in the old days. Some guys blow past 220 innings without a problem.
Right.
Other guys hit a wall. We talked about somebody, what the heck did we talk about a couple of weeks ago, who has had second half swoons a lot. I don't know if it was a Yankee or a Met now that I think about it as far as pitchers. They can't afford that.
Right.
And we'll talk about the Mets in a little bit, and they can afford it even less.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the longer they keep stretching Nestor, the less effective he's going to be, right? So, again, and Herman is just getting back, and you can tell he's not back to form, and even when he's back to form, there's a little bit of inconsistency in him. So, you need a couple pitchers in that lineup, and I mentioned it, and I always throw it out there. You have Andujar and you have Gleyber Torres, and right now Torres is hot, so get to pitch it,
Yeah, I'm not sure if Carl. Yeah, Carl. I'm sorry, Alan is talking about the middle infield. Listen, yes, Kinder Falafa has struggled a bit at the plate recently, and he struggled in the field as well. But on the other side of it, Gleyber Torres is and I know you want to use him as a trade chip, and in the right trade, I wouldn't say no, but Gleyber, who I thought would have trouble rebounding in New York. I never thought he couldn't rebound, but it's hard to come back in New York from the 2 seasons he's had. He's going to be a comeback candidate, comeback player of the year candidate. He's played very, very well. He's played good defense, and his bat has become alive, especially in the last couple of months. So,
I mean, Torres is he's what happens. He's a consequence of the minor league situation and trying to hold players back and the Yankees bringing players in to be utility players and not playing him correctly. Like,
who are we talking about now? I'm sorry.
Torres.
Torres. Okay.
The league needs the teams in the league, they need to stop. They need to get these guys in. If they pick them up in drafts and they have a position, maybe they can play 1 or 2 positions. But if these players are excelling in a certain position and they need to be on the field, need to be consistent. Like, I know you're trying to save money and trying to hold on to some of these players, but this is Gleyber Torres is exactly what happens. And the Cubs were doing it. They didn't want to bring him up, and then they give him to the Yankees. The Yankees brought him up because of an injury, and then they move him around on the last.
They got him for almost zero, by the way, because if you remember, they traded Chapman for him and then re-signed Chapman. So.
Right. So it's like, he's a good player. He can be a great player, but he needs to be on the field every day, and you need to give him, you need to quit taking him opportunities that he needs to step up in, and it's just right now he's hot. You say you have a loaded, infielders coming up. This is the issue. This is where I stand, Keith. This is the problem. You say you have all this potential and you have, all these prospects. Either you use them or you lose them. Come on, man. This is the problem that the Major League Baseball has, and this is why it's tough for the young players to get into the league and make something.
Again, it's hard to throw those kids into the middle of a pennant race.
It's baseball, man. It's sports. If you're an athlete and you're considered one of the best players or the best prospects, you got to prove it anyways. You're not going to be 27, 28 years old and be like, oh, I finally get an opportunity to be on the roster. That's just ridiculous, man.
Yeah, but neither Velope or Peraza has performed well enough.
We don't know that. We don't know what they can do in the major league level. All we know what they can do is in the minor league level, and the minor league level's problematic anyway because it just got contracted and the teams are just trying to string things together after COVID. So it's not really a testing ground for these guys.
I have no reason to think they're going to do better on a major league level than the minor league.
It doesn't look. You want to put them in the high pressure because this is New York and this is what they're going to play in every single day. Again, I keep saying these. There's even a player like Juan Soto, he stepped up. Now he's known as a generational player. How if you don't have another Juan Soto in the minors if you don't bring these guys up? Baltimore has the same. Now Baltimore has an opportunity to do this because Baltimore's their team, 3/4 of it is just like that. They have players that came up and now they're playing well. And now this team is surging 500, and they're probably gonna be in contention, to be one of the best teams.
I will wager you that. None of the guys that I've mentioned, or even Dominguez, is going to be. No, Dominguez has got a lot of potential. None of them are going to be Juan Soto. Juan Soto is a generational player.
We don't. Okay, but he was given the opportunity to be in the major leagues and to play consistently. We wouldn't have seen that. We wouldn't have seen that if they didn't give the players an opportunity to play and be in the field and on the field and in the dugout consistently. That's the problem, Keith. Here's what Major League Baseball has with a lot of this young talent and generational players is they don't know if they're out there because the teams don't play them and they don't want to pay them.
Okay, hold on. So to go to Stephen Gold's point here, and good morning, Stephen. Good to have you with us this morning. None of those guys address this problem. Their problem is not really second base. It's not second base at all. Shortstop, maybe. And you could maybe convince me to bring Velope up and give him a cameo and see how he does for a couple of weeks, and it wouldn't hurt the Yankees too much. But the problems lie in Joey Gallo, and Aaron Hicks has turned it around a little bit. He's played his defense. He can't play center field. He's terrible in center field now. They need a center fielder who can play. There's nobody in the minor leagues that fits that profile. Nobody. So you've got to go outside the organization. Joey Gallo can't be in this lineup. He just can't be. He can't be on. I don't even know how to say I keep him on the team. I really can't see him here after August 3rd. I really can't. Okay,
so look, these players are taking up roster spots, right? That's the problem. So, but now the Yankees figure out a way to maneuver their minor leaguers into deals to get these positions filled.
There's no pitchers ready. They got to go outside the organization to get pitchers. There's no pitchers ready to come up here and help this team. Unless maybe I guess he's up. Garcia's up actually, so maybe Gil can help them, but I think he's been hurt. But they got to go outside and they got to get some. You mentioned it before. They need some depth in that starting pitching. I don't know what I'm going to get out of Luis Severino the rest of the year. I have no idea. He could be done, given his history.
And the thing is that you're depending on him because of his of his prior experience, but his prior experience and his health and his age are two different things, right? Because his health and his age is what we're starting to see on the mound.
Yeah, and I think it's devastating to this team, not just on performance, but I think his comeback last year gave the team an emotional lift, and I think if they were to find out sometime in the next month he's done, it would be an emotional blow to this team because he's a popular guy and a really good player when he's on. And these guys feel for him, I think. So
yeah, I mean, I see kind of like when the Yankees brought back like David Cohn and even Gooden, like they gave him a few good games in there, but you could tell that they're not the same, and they're not gonna keep you. They're not like Mike Messina, or it wasn't like Mike Messina or Andy Pettitte that they were gonna keep you in the games longer, right?
Alan, I love you, buddy. You're my favorite. But for you to say the Rangers are the same. They're the same in the regard that they brought up some kids. They're in a far different situation than the Yankees, though. So I can't compare whether you can bring up kids to play in the middle of the season when you're the Rangers or the Yankees. Just saying. And of course, Alan gives us our random Joey Gallo fact of the day. Gallo has only 2 sacrifice flies in his entire career. That seems impossible to me, but I guess when you hit home runs or strike out, maybe it's not that impossible. I'll give you my my comparison of real quick of Gallo and the Carpenter, because Carpenter has taken the majority of Gallo's at bats right now. Carpenter remains hot. Didn't do much yesterday coming off the break, but he's got 86 at bats. Mm-hmm. And Gallo has 222.
Right.
Those at bats. Oh, I got some kind of advanced metrics here. Hold on. Hits. This is crazy. 36 hits for Gallo and 220 at bats. 28 for Carpenter and just 86.
86, right. So, but everybody knew when the Yankees picked him up that they were going to get him for his bat, right? Because when he's on the field, he's a liability.
Well, he had a couple bad games. In left field, he hasn't played badly. He played bad in right field that one night, but I think
so when you put Gallo there, you were released in the game defensively.
Yeah, but again, I'm not.
You can't get nothing out of him production-wise.
In the game we're talking about, Carpenter had some big hits where they wouldn't have been in the game regardless of right. So he's got more doubles, 5 to 4. Joey Gallo's gone an entire season, 222 at bats with 4 doubles. He's got more home runs, shockingly. And this is a guy, by the way, who was out of baseball.
Right.
Horrendous years with the Cardinals. He's a good player before that.
But Carpenter's always been known to be that clutch hitter, to be someone that you could keep in the game and have confidence hitting, right? Like not home runs necessarily, but keeping you in games hitting. And Gallo's starting to produce that whole concept that you could put me in for defensive help, but my bat's not going to be a heavy at all.
I don't think you can carry that guy's contract through the rest of the season, even just for the defensive help. I don't think. Now the problem is Yankees have talked about the team chemistry, and it's really good, and the players love Joey Gallo. And I don't have anything against Joey Gallo as a person.
He's a good kid. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy, and I just can't watch him on the field anymore. Continue to swing and miss, and just his approach at the plate is atrocious. What's Hicks got to? Hicks is up to 238 at least. He's played well the last.
He's had a few dingers in a couple of games where he kept the Yankees in the game, or the Yankees were already winning, and he added to that total. But again, we all have to see how this turns out with the Astros, and if they don't win any games against them, well, the only worry is going to be for the Yankees. Is like they know, they already know, is that the depth that they have on the team needs to be better. Not
to go back to Steven's comment, if Cashman doesn't get a high average with a guy with a running and scoring position, it's going to be 2017 or 15, by the way, all over again. And you can
but okay, that team had issues too with their bullpen, right? Because they had Sabathia and they had Tanaka, and those two guys were guys that they could depend on. So
at the end of the day, whether we talk about Yankees' other problems, we talk about the Astros stealing signs, which I really could care less about. The Yankees didn't hit. And that had nothing to do with anything else. They didn't hit. The Astros shut them down. The last 2 times they saw them in the postseason, they did not hit with runners in scoring position, and that's still a problem with this Yankee team. They win when they hit home runs, but they don't manufacture runs very well.
Right, but that's the way the team was built. That's what you get. Like, so your runner in scoring positions is just as important as the amount of like outs that you're getting from your defense. Like, and at the rate that you're getting them, right? And that's why Tanaka and Sabathia, they were going 5. You needed it to go 7, and that was a big old hole for them. So even if they didn't have enough hitting, they were on the field defensively more than they were, trying to get runners in scoring position. So, I mean, it was one of those tit for tat things anyway. So, and that's happened before with the Yankees because of the way they're built.
Again, I've said that from the beginning. Regardless of this great start, I didn't see them getting off to this great start. I didn't see them making the playoffs because of the way they were built. But Judge has been a monster. The pitching staff stayed healthy. Everything went right for the Yankees. DJ LeMahieu's playing a little more, and especially recently, like DJ LeMahieu.
Right.
Torres has bounced back. So there's been a lot of positives. Stanton's had a good year.
So my thing that bothers me is that people aren't even talking about Stanton because he's actually living up to his contract. But the last few years, people were like, "Oh well, we need to get rid of Stanton because he's not living up to his contract." And now they love Stanton because he's living up to his contract. So this is what you get when you pay for a player like that.
You can show me numbers all you want. What I care about is home runs. When did you get them? And to Steven's point, were there guys on base? Weren't there guys on base? Was the score 7-0 when you hit your home runs? Those things all matter, right? And the Yankees have got, and again, I don't want to sound like the sky's falling, but the sky's not falling. But this team, I don't care if they win 116 games. If they don't win in October, this season is going to be a failure. It just is. And, Boone last night, he tried to, it's funny, he tried to poo-poo, and he kind of agreed with me. It doesn't matter what they do against the Astros now. They need to win in October.
Right.
But you got to get your psyche. There's no doubt in my mind.
With a team like the Yankees, it's less psyche, more depth. Like that. That's more because those bats will get hot, and pitchers like Cole will get hot. So because that's what that's the high level players that they have on the team, Stanton and Cole, and Judge. So the problem is who's next? Who's behind these guys? Because they will get tired. It is summertime, and you have to have people come in to replace these guys when they're not on the field.
I'll get to a couple of these comments. I just want to go through the lineup quick and see where we think they need improvement, and then we'll move on to the Mets too. Last night's doubleheader was the last series where the Yankees and Astros have the remainder. Good point. So it's over. The Astros are the only team that the Yankees have played more than 5 games against that they have a losing record against this year, by the way.
Right.
How about Dusty Baker's call to go back-to-back months to open Game 1? Interesting. I don't know if that was his call. There's players doing that on their own, but either way, interesting strategy there. Get base runners is kind of but you need base runners, and then you need to drive those base runners in. That's what's always won in baseball. Home runs are really nice and fun, but hit home runs. Let's go through this lineup a little bit real quick, and tell me where you think. We'll talk about where we think they need improvement, and also maybe who's a potential guy to bring in here. The starting pitching, they need some depth. I mean, obviously they're looking good with Cole and Talion, Cortez. Even Montgomery's pitched okay, but I need another arm if Severino's not coming back. So there aren't a lot of great arms out there available. Castillo from the Reds would be the probably the main target. The kid from Oakland, I'm not sure. I always say his name wrong. Manoah, I think. Yeah, he's going to be available and most likely get traded. Probably 2 of the best guys available. Is there another name on the horizon that you can see where the Yankees could go to get to add depth to the starting rotation?
I think the Castillo from the Reds is like their number 1 option right now,
Yeah.
and I feel like Andujar and maybe Torres will be on that sheet to go. So I know Andujar is on everybody's every trade option.
Yeah, it's going to take more than the Andujar, right?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you got to trade Torres. I don't know or you're going to have to give up one of your top prospects or both because he's a really good major league pitcher and he's not going to go for a song. And by the way, remember, as we have this conversation, every guy that's available and every team that's buying is going to be asking for more because there's more buyers. I'm sorry, teams that are selling.
Right.
There's more buyers than ever because of the extra wild card and the American League's all bunched up with a bunch of teams within 3 games of that final wild card spot. So it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, and what I like to hear is that these teams that we thought were going to be bottom dwellers are also in the mix. Teams like Seattle and Baltimore, they're messing up the landscape for the Yankees.
Yeah,
because now they have depth in them in the minors, and they have a couple players that they on the roster that they can actually like let go. So the Yankees don't have what some of these losing ball teams had before because now it's a different ball game. So
it's funny. I don't see the Rangers doing that right now. I don't think. But anyway, let's get back to the Yankees. The bullpen. The bullpen's pretty good. Recently, there's been some issues. When Liza got hurt, he wasn't pitching like he did last year. That's a key. He needs to get back into his last year's form because Boone could use him any place in the game. He might use him in the third inning. He might use him to close the game. I think he's huge. Michael King needs to he got the loss in game 1 yesterday. He needs to continue to pitch as he was. Probably the key to this bullpen. Well, I think Loizaga is really the key. Second to that is, can Clay Holmes keep doing what he's been doing?
Yeah, that's where I think they're going to bump heads. Now they're talking because what Clay Holmes is. What's the deepest he's gone in a season as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not so much innings, but appearances, right? And but he's been lights out, obviously, since he added the new pitch to his arsenal, and he needs to continue it because Chapman is no longer a viable closer. Not least here. You might find a team at the deadline that may take him, though. I've talked to the Philly sports guy a bunch of times, and he says the Phillies would take him, put him at the back end of that bullpen in a hurry. Not that they have much to trade for him, but I don't think the Yankees would need much to get rid of Chapman. They could get Herrera maybe for some defense. Not that he's a tremendous defensive player.
He's not good defensively.
He's better than Hicks is right now, probably though.
I don't know. The Phillies don't have much to offer right now either. They built the team just like the Yankees built the team. So
I would hazard the Yankees built a better defensive team than the Phillies.
I think the Yankees got lucky because they can pull better players from the top of the pole that actually are better defensively. That would be my guesstimate instead of like saying that the Yankees built their team better defensively. The Yankees were able to pay for players who were better and are better defensively.
Good morning to Bob Engel and Jeanette. Good to have
Bob,
you.
Good morning.
Could patch it. Chapman is not going to be part of any Soto deal. They're not taking that contract. And they can't use him. We
got to understand as fans, as much as we want to get rid of some of the players on our team to get better, the Nationals are a team that's going to be sold. So they're going to want more younger players on their team, so that way it looks better as a chip, bargaining chip. So
they're going to want 4 top prospects in a player, is my guess. And if you're the Yankees, you got to start be willing to give up the guys you love, Velope and Peraza, and maybe Dominguez and a major league player like Torres. That might get it done, but now you've wiped out your minor league system.
And they don't have to worry about it. Look, the Yankees can sign anybody and anywhere all around the world because they're the Yankees. Well, they're the team right now that are on the top to getting Soto, and
it's not about money.
Voyage for Judge.
I would hazard to say, and we've gotten off our topic a little bit, but I would hazard to say the Padres are the number one suitor for Soto. By the way, Soto.
I think the Padres are a suitor because Soto doesn't want to play on the Northeast.
Yeah,
I think he wants to play somewhere nicer.
Yeah,
but if he wants to pick location over actual winning, then he could go to the Padres as long as the Padres have enough to bargain with. So. And the Padres ownership is more likely to give out a bigger contract anyway. So
and by the way, Juan Soto is not necessarily going to get traded at the deadline here. I really think the Nationals are probably going to wait till the offseason to trade him because I think they'll probably get a better haul because these contenders don't want to give up pieces that they're using right now, right? So I think it'll happen in the offseason. Let's look further here. Catcher, I think the Yankees are good. Trevino's been a godsend. Whatever he gives you at the plate is a extra.
Well, who thought that Trevino was going to be an all-star this year?
Nobody.
And
he becomes
and who signed Trevino? Who put him on the Yankees roster?
Cashman.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll give credit where credit's due. By the way, it was interesting seeing him and Nestor mic'd up the other night. But one of the most, again, the game was fairly unwatchable for me, but that was an interesting moment. I had a lot of fun. They left him mic'd up his next at bat, and it was a lot of fun. That part I found fun.
It was humbling for him, right?
Yeah. First base, the Yankees are set. You got Rizzo playing really good ball. His batting average could be better, but this is a guy who you have to look deeper than just his batting average, because when there's guys on base, he's at his best.
And you have to understand that that's the reason they signed him, right? That's the reason, like, they looked past Freeman and they're like, we could just re-sign Rizzo. We already have him on the squad, so and they know what they're getting from him, and he's a home time body, so everything fit for him to be here. So, and he's doing well. So
plus you got great depth because you got LeMahieu and Carpenter can play there as well. So second base, they don't need to make a move unless they take your suggestion and use Torres as a
trade bait.
But if they don't, they're set there. They've got Torres, they got LeMahieu, they got Marwin Gonzalez. Third base, look at Donaldson has not been what actually he's been what I thought he would be. I don't know that the Yankees thought he were getting him. I think it was more taken on his contract so they could get rid of Sanchez. But you still got LeMahieu. That's LeMahieu's main place he's starting. So I think they're okay there. They don't need to make an improvement.
No, and Donaldson gives you at least 3 games in a 7-game series, right?
Yeah.
So you got depth. You got depth in third base better than you got depth in your bullpen right now.
You got really good depth in the infield, except shortstop, really. And that's where, if they want to make an upgrade in the infield, it would be at shortstop because, as I said earlier in the year, kind of Falafa. I keep wanting to say it is Falafa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Isn't Falafa like some kind of
falafel?
Falafel. Okay, thank you. I knew there was something there. Now I'll start calling him that now, by the way. Kiner Falafa has played well early in the year, and I said all I needed out of him was to make the routine plays. Well, he's starting to have his struggles in the field.
Again, a player that hasn't been on the base long enough, on the bases long enough, like you don't know what he is because he hasn't been there yet. He hasn't played that many games, like back to back. So he'll get his mindset and mind right and body right as the season goes, and it's only going to get hotter.
His bat hasn't been awful. I mean, not a lot of power and not a lot of pop, but he hasn't been awful. He's hitting 275 and better probably than they expected. But they may look to make an upgrade there. The outfield is where it really comes in. Gallo can't be playing. The question becomes: are you okay with Hicks in left field and playing Judge every day in center field, which I'm not crazy about because I got Stanton in the field where he does hit better when he's in the field. I get it. But health-wise, I don't think Stanton playing the majority of games in right field and Judge playing the majority of games in center field is really good for the team as we head into the postseason. I would make a move for a center fielder, somebody like Victor Robles from the Nationals, again, somebody who'll be available. Ian Happ is a guy who is an all-star, probably going to get traded, can play center field. Can play a lot of places. He's another guy who can play all over the field.
I think Cashman likes Happ too. Like they've been talks about Happ for since even the last year.
I love his game. I love his game, and I think
Cashman wants a guy like that just because you need guys like that in the dugout. You need guys like that are gamers. Because Happ's a gamer.
And I think it's not going to take a lot to get an Ian Happ here. I don't think you're going to have to overpay for him, depending on who else is looking for him.
But again, you're getting another gamer. You're not getting anybody in the bullpen or to pitch. So
he's not a Gold Glover, Falafa. I don't know.
He can be. The thing is, he has to get there. That was one of the problems that he needs to play. He needs to be on the field, man.
All right, so and at DH, no big deal. Whoever's not playing, in the outfield or the infield is going to play DH. So they got plenty of options there. So I think we agree they need to get some depth in the pitching staff. Maybe look to upgrade shortstop if possible, and I think they need an outfielder that can play center field, good defensively. He doesn't have to play every day because you can play Judge out there a little bit. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't think they're major upgrades. I think they're tweaks. Ian Happ is the guy I want.
Yeah.
Team by August.
Again, love to have Ian Happ, but I would get a pitcher before I get Ian Happ.
All right, so let's make a prediction. Easy to say this team wins the Eastern Division. They win. They're not going to blow this lead.
Right.
Come playoffs, can this team, as it's constituted today, win the World Series?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I think they need to make those outfield improvements and get some more depth on the pitching staff.
Those,
Then
those little tweaks are actually major improvements that need to be done.
Yeah, because sometimes little things are big things, right?
Yeah, to balance out the offense that they have. So
right. I want a better defensive center fielder, maybe a better defensive shortstop, and I need a guy, as Stephen Gold said earlier, I will harp on this myself, guy who hits with runners in scoring position and good situational hitter. Yankees still lack there a little bit, and that's where they get beat by the Astros. They don't score enough runs. So let's move on to the Mets. Same kind of conversation here. So the Mets have, 2.5 game lead over the Braves. Maybe they'll get DeGrom back. I mean, not great news on DeGrom this week. It seems maybe his shoulder's discomfort was nothing, and he may get back on track.
But he did play. He did play last night, right? 10 strikeouts.
Yeah, they want to get him 2 starts in the majors before July ended. Before the trade deadline. I should say before the trade deadline. That's not going to happen now. Maybe he'll get 1 because they wanted to see how what they had. But look at this guy could break down at any second if he's healthy, and Scherzer's healthy. The Mets can make it to the postseason. They're going to be very tough in a short series with those 2 guys.
Look, and we got to look past our fandom and what players have and the perspective that we he's what 34 years old.
Who? DeGrom?
Yeah, he's not a young cat, and he's been pushing his body to extremes in the last his last 2 award-winning seasons. So I mean, he was doing great things with no help at all.
He is 34 years old. Okay.
Yeah. So, you can't. I know Scherzer is a little bit older, but still, Scherzer as well. Scherzer has breaking points. You saw that what he did with the Dodgers, and they were unable to use him a couple games that they wanted to. So, these guys are showing their age, and it's okay. Because you have somebody on the other side like Verlander doing outstanding. We have to understand that Verlander had a couple operations. He had a couple seasons off because he didn't play during the COVID times. So he's in a little bit better situation. But I don't think Verlander will keep doing what he's doing. So, I mean, to have high expectations for these athletes at this, the highest peak is a lot. Put a lot of pressure for these teams to do, even though they're paying these players to be, ultra competitive at this level. And in the playoffs. So I always said, and I've said this plenty of times, I wouldn't have cared if Scherzer and DeGrom had come back in August or September. And that wouldn't have been a big deal to me because we're not going to get them for the longevity of the season. You're just not. And those guys have pitched so much and so well that they know what they're doing, and they mean to be as fresh as possible.
Yeah, but this is a team with a history of second half collapses, and you're
talking about DeGrom and Scherzer, you're talking about 2 older pitchers, the best pitchers in the Major League Baseball for the last 6 years. You know what I'm saying? And Scherzer and then DeGrom in the last 5 years. So I wasn't gonna expect them to play the whole season. And that's why I said what I said. And I'm being a realist. I'm looking at their age and what they've accomplished and what they can do. I'm not looking at what I want them to do because that's unrealistic, And we always pay these players for the past performances, which is why Scherzer's getting the $40 million, not because he's going to take you to a World Series. That's not why you're paying him.
Well, from a performance standpoint, I think you know what you're going to get for him. The thing is, can you get him on the field is the point. Scherzer's pitched lights out. Pretty much.
Yeah, okay, but he hasn't played the whole season. So
I understand that. That's what I said. But get them on the field, you're going to get really good performances out of them in the playoffs and in the regular season.
And even in his comeback in some of these practice games, DeGrom has hit 100 on the radar, pitching radar. So look, it doesn't matter. What matters is when they're on the field and what they do when they're on the field.
I'm sure the Mets would be more rather he was not hitting 100 on the radar gun.
Yeah, but they didn't stop him. They didn't stop him, and that's something that DeGrom is trying to see if he still got the velocity. Look, I'm not banking on Scherzer or DeGrom until it's time for them to actually need them. That's how I look at it. They're going to have McGill come back.
Does it matter if they win the division? Do you care?
Do I care for what?
if they win the division or get a wild card?
They have to be in the playoffs. It doesn't matter whether they win the division or not. And plus, everybody's questioning that, and some people over here are going nuts in the media. The Mets beat the Braves. So they proved they could with very little. So they proved that the Braves aren't that great. That's what they proved.
You do understand too that in the wild card round now, the team with the best record gets every game at home. Every game.
Yeah, but they don't.
3 in every game's on the best team's field.
It's that's like one of those benefits, right? That's like a positive to winning the your division. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the team to win, it doesn't matter. Your team has to be on the field to perform on the field at the best, and you have to have the best players available. That matters the most.
Without making a move, can the Mets hold off the Braves in the East?
Without making a move?
Without making a move.
The Mets are the type of team that can, because they've been winning in different types of ways. So, yeah, I think they can. Will they last long in the playoffs doing that? That's neither here nor there, because they need to improve. They need the tweaks, just like the Yankees, right?
Right. I do think winning this division is important for this team, both from a playoff setting up for the playoff standpoint and their psyche. Again, remember, this team has blown leads in the second half last year and many previous years in the last.
Right, and I've been telling you, and I as much as I love Buck being doing his thing here for the Mets, he's made some really bad calls this year. And the Mets have been able to even surpass his bad calls and win. And also they've lost on some of the bad calls that he's made. So,
we'll continue to disagree on Buck Showalter's acumen as a major league manager.
Listen, he there's 4 games that he's like put out, has taken switch players to be hitting, and they're slumping, and they're not doing that well, and they're not doing good in the clutch, and we're unable to win certain games. So that's on him. That's not, and on top of that, he's kept pitchers in longer than they needed to be in.
What about the other 80 games outside of those 4 games?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's 2 handful of games that he's had situations where he tried to win, but the team wasn't up to it as far as stamina and as far as being mentally ready. So that's not on him. That's on the team.
I think with what the Mets with what Buck has had to deal with and the team's had to deal with through this first half. Scherzer out for an extended time. No DeGrom at all. All the pitchers have missed some time. Poor performances out of your catchers. Poor performances out of your third baseman. Poor performances out of Davis. Marte in and out of the lineup.
McNeil struggles.
I think he's done a really good job keeping his team 2.5 games in front at this point of the season. I don't think without Buck this team would be there right now.
And look, and who's to say? I don't know, and I'm not going to say that that's not true. But what I'm saying is that
we don't know for one
thing. Right, we won't ever know. But what I'm saying is that, and I call him out on it, and I'll text you when I'm at some of these games, and I'll be like, Buck just made a bad call, man. He sometimes overthinks situations and is hoping their players to step up. And some of these guys haven't been there before, and they're not ready, but they're going to get there, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do as a manager, right?
Alan's scenario here is a good one, where I think if the Mets get a wild card and play the Padres, and let's just say the Padres have a better record, they got a little ways to catch them. I think it's 6 games. I think the Mets are clear of the Padres right now if it was a wild card situation. Mm-hmm. But if the Padres were to pass them in the second half and the Mets had to go play 3 games, 2 out of 3, all in San Diego, that would be a problem for the Mets. That would be a horrible matchup, and that's what they have to avoid.
No, I don't think so. I think that's probably actually better for the Mets, in a sense where San Diego's bullpen isn't up to par. So, and they can either only get better or get a lot worse. And the Heat in this season, the later the season, doesn't bode well for the Padres. It hasn't bode well for the Padres and the roster that they built in the last 3 seasons. So, and a guy like Buck to come in and take those guys to San Diego is actually not a bad situation if you look at it on not being a fan and actually and liking baseball and knowing about baseball. because the Padres right now, they were my pick for the last 2 seasons to go to World Series, but they have injury issues, coaching issues, and their bullpen lacks consistency, and their starters lack effectiveness. So
I don't think they have a manager issue. He's
they had in the past 2 seasons. So
okay, he's one of the best managers in baseball.
Yeah, no, before they switched coach, managers. So,
and again, to be clear, I'm not saying the Padres are better than the Mets. Better team doesn't always win. Situations and circumstances come into play, and if you've got to fly to the West Coast to play these 3 games or 2 games, that's all it takes. It's not a good situation for the Mets or anybody.
Right. Well, listen, if you're in late September and you want to play baseball, wouldn't you rather play baseball in San Diego than on your home turf in New York, not knowing what the weather's going to be like?
I'd rather go to. That's a good question.
And on top of that, New York Mets fans, they travel well anyways, and San Diego is a great place for them to go if the Mets are
there's still travel. There's still a lot of stuff combined there. Now,
and when they play at Pickle Field, they got a lot of Mets fans anyways.
To Alan's question, I'd certainly rather go to Philly than San Diego. So because the Philly's a very flawed team and they're not going to be able to make major changes. They don't have the chips to do it.
Right. What I don't like about the Mets playing the Phillies is that if the Phillies bats come alive and the Mets pitch is not up to par, that's
yeah.
And
the Cardinals are up and down team.
Talk about like who's on your who's starting for you, right?
Yeah, agreed. Let's go through there just to see where they can make some improvements. We got some time. Let's go position by position. Pitcher, we know they need some depth, right? Because we don't know what they're going to get out of DeGrom. Scherzer could break down. We don't know. Carrasco and Walker are always injury potentials.
Even Bassett wasn't doing too well in a few games this past season.
Yeah,
but now he's picking it up.
Problem though. He's just had some struggles. He had COVID, and I think that played into it probably. But
I think that helped him though. That week, the 2 weeks of break almost helped him because he was getting a little bit worn there.
Look at Juan Walker has been a godsend for this team, I think. Now, he's the guy I was thinking about faded last year in the second half, though. He pitched really well last year in his first half. He has pitched well this first half and helped keep the Mets afloat. But
I like Walker. I like what he's doing. I like what he's done. I don't want to be a pessimist and say that, well, is he going to be the same pitcher that's coming off the break? And I say that because that's one of the reasons why Miami was they didn't get no consistency out of him, and Miami was willing to let him go, even as a young pitcher. He might have the same issue as Nestor. Like, he hasn't been there before. So what are we going to get at? As a team, what are we going to get at him? What are the Mets going to get out of?
Well, plus he's had some arm injury history, unlike Nestor. He's had some injury issues.
Exactly. So, and he's a pitcher that sometimes will lean on velocity when he doesn't really need to. He just needs to be a little bit more aware of his situation and try not to be the hero, because the Mets bullpen they can stretch the game out a little bit, So look, this is what I didn't like about Buck at that game, one of the past games that he did. He saw Walker was on the hill. Walker had already 76 pitches, and he pushed him for another extra inning. And then they come out, and this is against the Marlins. Now, you don't need to be,
This is what's wrong with baseball. You're telling me that
you don't need to be great, right? So and everybody knows his pitch count. He went over 76. He doesn't usually go over 90.
You say that like he pitched.
He doesn't usually go over 90. He already pitched his 76. He's going to close out the inning, and then he comes back at the top at the 7th inning when they can already have put him to rest.
That's another full inning to get to 90.
Second pitch, he allows the Marlins to catch up the game and change the whole scope of the game. It's crazy. It's crazy. Those kind of things is bothersome. Like, listen, you're playing against the Marlins. You know that they're not that great hitting anyway. So you're just trying to build his stats up when you could have just sat him down and rested him because he doesn't need to be on the mound.
But you talk about 76 pitches, that's not a lot of pitches.
Look, okay, his pitch count isn't that big of a deal if you're looking at the velocity he's throwing at. But his velocity he's a high velocity pitcher. So his pitch is 76 is like throwing 100 pitches, man.
Look at
100. So you got to look at it that way. If you look at it any other way, then you're just the way. Then you're not doing the justice to your pitcher, man. Come on.
No, because we don't gear pitchers to pitch. Actually, we want to get them out of there after 70, 80, 90 pitches.
The dynamic of pitching is so different in today's day, and the actual pitcher sitting on the mound is so different in today than it was back in the day. There's so many different things. And the day that they played the Marlins and Buck kept walking around the field, I was sat there and watching. It was hot. Like, and so was Walker. Walker was hot too. He's throwing 94, 95, 92, just striking guys out left and right. He had maybe 7 strikeouts. Like, I liked it. It was great. That's baseball. And then all of a sudden, it's the 7th inning. You're like, why is Walker still out there? Just go ahead and sit him down. He had a great game.
We can go through what's wrong with baseball for at least an hour, maybe 2 shows.
But if Buck would have took him out, it would have been at the end of the game. At the
highest, the guys you pay the most money don't pitch the most important part of the game. It's ridiculously stupid and backwards, and that's a different topic. Let's move on so we can get.
There's more things that affect the game than just throwing the ball, man. So
I'm not saying that. I'm saying the way the game is played is backwards. There's no feel. Now, yes, if he's 76 pitches and there were a tough 76 pitches and he should have got out, then I get you. But just the fact that 76 pitches doesn't matter in my mind. It shouldn't matter, but it does because there's no feel for the game. But
yeah, but the feel for the game, it was one of the hottest days in New York, and in the summer, at the beginning of the summer already.
These guys can't throw 80 pitches or 90 pitches. I don't care what the heat is, and get somebody who can.
Oh, come on, man, you don't like it,
because this is the way they're trained from the time they start pitching, and that's.
And look, to be honest with you, Scherzer did the same thing in LA. It was hot. They try to put him in and pitch, at least 60 pitches, and he was pitching a great game, but he couldn't go past 60. The heat, the stamina he had was not enough to keep him in the game, man. They took him out.
110 pitches. By the way, how hot's it get in Texas, Alan? Pretty hot, right?
Yeah, and that's why the pitching staff gets pretty rounded up.
Well, again, he hasn't shown any worse for the wear.
But again, like as far as Walker, he's a great pitcher, and I don't know. I hope to expect him to do just as well as he did at the beginning of the season, but we're gonna see what he has in the tank.
Let's move on because we only got a couple of minutes left. So the bullpen, the bullpen, the back end of the bullpen's been really good. Edwin Diaz is one of the bigger turnaround stories this year. That team's 50-0. They haven't lost a game when they lead after 8 innings.
Right,
that's a tremendous stat. And that's a stat that helps teams win a lot of games.
Ottavino is up and down. Lugo needs to Lugo's inconsistent as well. Those 2 guys need to kind of step it up.
Lugo's kind of the same type of pitcher as Loaizaga for the Yankees. He's a guy that's a Swiss Army knife. They pitch him in all different parts of the game, and he needs to be good. And they need some help in the front end of that bullpen, I think. An arm or 2 wouldn't hurt. Catcher's a nightmare. I wouldn't be surprised to see this team go out and get a catcher.
So the Contreras situation is something that's really that the Mets have to figure out, and they have to figure it out quick. And the reason it's a mess is because you have Can under contract, and you're going to lose money on that if you get Contreras. So
I know it's tough, and he's probably just a rental for the year. Plus, if they want him to catch, if they bring him in here to DH or something, that's one thing. But to catch and throw him in here in the middle of the season is not always that easy to get.
Well, I think a player like Contreras could probably catch anybody. The problem with Contreras is that, and I mentioned this before, is his own attitude and his personality. There's games where he's at it, and he's going to be part of the team and be positive. And then there's games where he should be in it and be positive because the Cubs were in the game, but he just kind of slowly gets himself out of it, and especially hitting wise and even catching when in some situations it's like, come on, I think it's a personal thing for me from what I've seen of him, but I wouldn't mind his bat on the team, to see the Mets on the Mets team at all.
It would. The thing would be if he did catch, how he's going to mesh with the pitching staff after coming in, cold. That's the big thing there. First base, obviously, no problem with Pete Alonso. He's going to play most of the games anyway.
Right. Which I think is bad because Dom is actually a great first baseman.
He is, but he hasn't really hit. That's the problem. And now he's hurt.
Yeah,
so I think Dom Smith's on his way out of town here before the trade deadline. That's what.
That's what it seems like. But I mean, here's a problem with what they have with Dom is like they could keep him and not sign Pete. I mean, Pete struggles during the middle of the season, and he's, as much as he's a great hitter, he's not always hitting great. You know, he slumps a lot. And if you talk about risk, you know, now Dom hasn't proven that he's a great hitter as well. But you know, are you going to sign? Can you sign Pete for over 300? I don't know if the Mets want to do that. Yeah,
we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Second base or left field, wherever McNeil happens to be playing, he's bounced back. He showed last year as an aberration. He's hit the ball really well.
He's a good athlete. He's very underrated. He just needs to get his head straight when he's hitting and just be, you know, and try and just stop he tries too hard sometimes, I think.
Third base is a place they could use an upgrade unless they want to play Luis G. Well, I tried to say his last name either.
Guillorme.
Was it?
Guillorme.
That's not so hard. Guillorme. He's been a great player off the bench for them this year and very helpful. But Escobar's been a disappointment, I think, with the bat and in the field for the Mets. So third base.
Escobar has had games where he's shown why the Mets picked him up. My thing with the Mets, what they haven't done well is not put J.D. Davis at third. Everybody talks about, oh, well, you know, he's not that great. Well, he's actually was pretty good when he was playing every day at third, and his bat was better when he was playing every day at third. And I think the Mets really missed the boat on that, overreaching for a player with more experience. They could have gave that experience to JD, and being on a roster that's overfilled with guys that are positional players was one of the reasons why the Astros let JD go, not because they wanted to, but because they didn't have room for him. Yeah. And I feel like the Astros didn't want to put him on the field as well. And I think the Mets did the same thing and made the mistake of not putting him on the field. If JD Davis, and I don't know this, but what I do know, if JD Davis has been playing third base more and consistently, I think his stats and analytics would have shown that he is actually a good third baseman.
Possibly. Let's move a little quicker here because we're going to be out of time in 2 minutes. Lindor's had a really good year. His batting average could be a little bit better, but his peripherals are really good.
And I tell people all the time, I tell Mets fans, if Lindor was not on this team, the Mets wouldn't be in contention.
Agreed.
Lindor helped the pitching staff. Lindor helps defensive-wise. Lindor helps hitting when he's hitting well, not when you want him to hit well. So Lindor is one of those inconsistencies that is hard to get consistent, but when he gets hot, you're getting what you pay for. When he's not hot, you're getting what you pay for on the field. So you can't win at every aspect, but you're at least getting something.
Of guys who are not talked about it, and I said before the season he would be a dark horse for this. This guy continues to do what he's done. He'll be a contender for the MVP at the end of the year. He's that valuable to this team. In the outfield, I think they could use another outfielder at DH because. And we'll combine the two because Dom Smith has not performed. Davis hasn't performed, as we said. Nemo's been very good. Marte's been good when he's healthy. Canha, he's okay. Nothing great, but he's not going to kill you either.
Yeah, Canha's thing, and what I say about Canha is I think the Buckets played him one too many games. And the problem was because of injuries.
Yeah,
and then because you see the games that he comes back after a 2-day rest, that he looks better at the bat, and he's always been a good, decent defender. So, but Canha wasn't a bad pickup. It's just you're situational with the roster, and I think Buck has stretched some of these guys out a little bit too long. Yeah. That need a little bit break, and the guys that need to play, he hasn't played them enough. And I think that's one of the things that the Mets they have kind of figured it out anyways.
I think they can survive the outfield situation they have now with Mixon, McNeil in there as well, and with these other four guys. They need a hitter for DH. I can see them go out because I don't think they're going to overpay. Nelson Cruz is the guy I think will come in here.
And you mentioned that before, and I feel like if they bring in Bell, would be the best option. And I don't know if they're going to get rid of him to be in the same division, but it's either Bell or you go for Soto and don't even think about Cruz. Because he's older, he doesn't give you depth. He just gives you a bat, and if something happens on the lineup, you got rid of so much to get some of these players that it'll be effect. The effect will not be good at all. If they got
we got less than 20 seconds. Mets make the playoffs. Yes. Do the Mets win a series?
Yes, at least one.
Do they get to the World Series?
They can. They just need to get some pitchers.
All right, it'll be interesting time. Good hour discussing this topic. Carlos, thank you for your time. We'll see you all next week. TGI right here on Northeast